Howdy everyone, welcome to Longriders Community Church. I'm Mick. Today I want to have a discussion about three different topics. One topic will be our motorcycles. Okay, so when we think about our bikes, you know, the main thing is with bikes, they don't just happen. You know, things get developed, things get designed. They draw off information from previous models. They introduce new ideas, and over a period of time, they develop into the bikes that we have today. So if you think about 30 years ago or 40 years ago, the old shovel heads and pan heads and things like that, they they were developed based on the information they had at the day, and they were reasonably good bikes. But over a period of time, they increase their knowledge and understanding and new processes, etc., new designs, and they build better bikes. So it gets to a point where we have things like the one that's behind me, for example. Okay, so that's an old bike by today's standards. That's more than 10 years old now, that bike. It's still a good bike, still runs well. But the main thing is, each part of that bike has been designed. The engine's been designed, the transmission's been designed, the frame's been designed. They pull it all together, and by connecting all the parts together, they build a motorcycle, which is pretty awesome. But each part, like the engine and the transmission, is just a combination of multiples of other parts. Gears, bearings, pistons, cylinders, cylinder heads, etc. It just goes on and on. But at the end of the day, they get made in a factory. They're designed by engineers. They're designed and built by technicians. And these guys, they build an awesome product. But the main point here is that these things don't happen on their own. Okay, next topic is our planet. We probably don't put much thought into things about our planet. We just get up and do our thing and go to work, come home, go for a ride, come home, do whatever. There's always grass to be mowed, there's always stuff to do. But when we put a little bit of thought into the planet, there's a lot of complex stuff going on in the background. For example, we're just starting to head towards winter. You can always already feel the weather change, and part of that weather change is got to do with the orbit of the sun. So as we get into winter, basically means that we're the furthest that we're going to be from the sun. And when we get into summer, we're closer to the sun. And most of us know that. But some of the things we probably don't think about is things like the revolution of the planet around the sun. So I've done a bit of research into this, and when we look at the planet rotating around the sun, we know that it takes 1 year or 365 days to do a full orbit. But we probably don't think much about the distance that it covers. So the planet covers 940 million kilometres to do one revolution. And you probably think, well, yeah, that's okay, no big deal. But if we do any mathematics to work out our speed, 940 million kilometres divided by 365 days means that we're travelling at an average speed of 107,000 kilometres per hour. And that's a pretty amazing speed. So, when we put into perspective, we've got a planet that's travelling through space at 107,000 kilometres per hour to cover a 940 million kilometre distance over a 365-day period. And yet, it's doing this distance with no apparent energy, engine, it's just doing it. And the other interesting thing with the planet is that it's been doing it for, they reckon, billions of years. So, that in itself is quite amazing and raises some questions. The other thing that raises some questions, which I find really interesting, is that I only found out the other day that all of the planets operate on the same plane. So if you look at it side on, they all rotate around the sun, but they all rotate around on the same plane. So we don't have planets just rotating randomly. They rotate and they follow a path, a specific path. They're all following the same plane, and they all rotate around the sun. This is the sort of stuff that, from a mathematical point of view, from a creation point of view, it would appear to be really well organised. It would appear to be very accurately calculated. And again, this is the sort of stuff that points directly at a creator. Engineered by design looks like another case of that. Okay, the last topic for discussion out of the three is DNA. Now, I don't know about you guys, but DNA always amazes me from the first time I heard about it. And just to sort of clarify where DNA fits in our body, each one of our body cells has got strands of DNA in it. Now, the DNA is a code. The code consists of all the information for our body. It consists of information like how our cells reproduce, how we grow, our development, things like the colour of our skin, the colour of our eyes, what our height will be, what the shape of our body will be, and a whole heap of other things. And, I suppose the thing is with DNA, it's probably not so much that it's there, but it's just the information that's contained in it. So when you look into DNA and the makeup of it, they reckon there's something like 3.2 billion pieces of information contained within a strand of DNA. And that's just phenomenal. So with DNA, if you were to take the DNA out of your cell, and this is what the scientists reckon, but if you took the DNA out of your cell and laid it out on the ground, that 3.2 billion pieces of information would span somewhere between 2 and 3 metres. And that's a fair amount of distance when you think of it like that. Now, the other thing with DNA, which we don't always consider, is within the DNA code, there's not only all the guidelines for how our body develops and all that sort of stuff, but there's also coding in there on how it repairs itself. So, living animals, that includes humans, they've got this stuff built into their DNA that actually identifies when there's a problem and has some sort of backup plan on how to respond to it or repair it. And that's really amazing. That's really amazing. So when we get a cold or a virus or an illness, or if we hurt ourselves or cut ourselves or injure ourselves, somewhere within the DNA, there's a code that knows how to respond to that. That's just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. I suppose the point to it all, though, is, when we get back to the original topic, being engineered by design, that is another example of engineered by design. We are creatures that have been engineered by design. Only a couple of hours ago, I was doing computer programming for a CNC machine, and I was helping people understand and learn how the coding relates to the movements of the machine. And, the machines won't operate themselves and they can't operate themselves, but when we actually program the machine, we can make it do amazing things. And it's the same with our DNA. It hasn't been done randomly. It hasn't been done through evolution. The only way it could have been done was to be programmed, developed, and basically installed into each one of us. So that in itself is just an amazing thing. So that was the third topic of engineered by design. It goes along with the initial one where we're talking about the bikes. It sort of fits in with the planet and the way the planet's moves around the universe. All of this stuff. It's mathematically accurate. It's mathematically correct, and it can only be engineered by design. Okay, just to wrap this all up. if we think about the bikes that have been engineered by design, we think about the planet and the movement and the way it operates. We think about our DNA and the way that operates. You know, it sort of suggests and points towards a creator. The Bible gives us some insight into different references that have been written well before any technology could prove otherwise. So regarding the planet, in the book of Job 26:7, it says, God stretches out the north over the void and hangs the earth on nothing. And that was written about 600 BC. So, you know, it's stretched out and hangs on nothing. You know, we know that the planet just basically hangs in space, but it's interesting that that was written in the Bible. In Psalm 75:3, it says, when the earth totters and all its inhabitants, it is I, God, who keeps steady its pillars. And that was written approximately 710 BC. Regarding our bodies and our DNA, in Job 10:11-12, it says, clothe me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews. You gave me life and showed me kindness, and in your providence watched over my spirit. Again, that was written 600 BC. But probably the next real important one that makes a lot of sense is from Psalm 139:13-14. It says, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And that was written approximately 1048 BC. You know, the thing with that particular one there, it talks about being knitted together in our mother's womb. And even though that sounds a little bit far-fetched, the thing is that fits in line perfectly with the way DNA works. So DNA is strands. You can knit strands. The DNA coding is kind of knitted together. You know, this is the sort of stuff that, you know, information out of the Bible really confirms what science has only just recently discovered. So, you know, every now and then you come across situations where, you know, people will argue the point and say, oh yeah, you know, like prove God exists. But sometimes when we look at all this information, what it comes down to is you've really got to try and come up with an example where proof that God doesn't exist is probably a more powerful argument. Anyway, that's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed it. Give you something to think about. Other than that, ride safe.
I've got a simple song here. It's just a song about how sometimes, you know, maybe even around the church, we can put people on pedestals and make them our idols and look to them for most of our guidance when really we should be looking towards Jesus. So I hope you like it. I've got my 3-string Hudson Terraplane hubcap guitar, which I've just started learning to play. And I felt like making a bit of noise this morning. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares. Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Reach out and touch faith.
will believe it. Take second best, put me to the test. Hands on your chest, you need to confess. I will deliver, you know I'm a forgiver, yeah. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Reach out.